Hi guys, this is the report for our August 2013 meeting, which I'm really looking forward to. Both Dimitri and I are really looking forward to. We've got four major things that we're going to be talking about in this video. The first is that looking back over the past, this board has been meeting for about 2 years. Looking back over the past year, I'm just astounded by what this board has accomplished, and I want to go over that a little bit. I'm going to blog about it, but I want to go over that. So our board's own accomplishments. Second, I want to talk about the first ever Creating the Future community conversations tour that we did through Southern Ontario in July, which was really over the top and amazing. Third, I want to talk a little bit about what exactly I'm doing on sabbatical this year, what I'm working on. And fourth, let you know a little bit about what we're doing in terms of the stuff you've heard about revamping the office and the conversion of what's going on here. So those are the four things that we'll be talking about in this video. But first, I want to share with you guys, because you don't get to hear these a lot. I want to share with you something that came out of actually in response to a blog post that was written about the tour that we did through Southern Ontario. One of the places that we convened people and met was at with a group called Mars in Toronto. Where community convening is really what they are all about, bringing together all sectors, all innovators to effect social change. Huge and powerful and wonderful organization. It was an honor to be there. They then blogged about the event, and this comment was in response to that blog post, and I just wanted to read it to you guys because it's something that you don't normally get to hear. I have found the work of Creating the Future to be a path towards better and better feeling, change, and better impact. It often feels like I'm out of my comfort zone, and then I realize that's exactly where I should be. So much of what we have come to think of as comfortable isn't actually working. Instead, when we apply the Pollyanna principles and the basic thinking behind them, we're on the right track towards the change we all want to see happen. So I'm now asking different questions and involving and engaging as many people as possible instead of plodding along with a strategic planning process that doesn't actually get me one step closer to the change I want to see. So I thought you guys would want to hear that. That is just one tiny piece of the impact that we're having. So now let's just get into the rest of the report. Like I said, our board has been meeting for just about 2 years. It's hard to imagine that 2 years ago we were having our very first board meetings. I think our first board meeting was actually in June of 2011. We're at August of 2013. I want to talk a little bit about, though, what we've accomplished just this year, just this 12 months since last summer, because as I started to think about it, it's just absolutely astounding. A year ago at this time, we were plodding through trying to do our planning so that we could figure out what is our plan for accomplishing our mission. And it became very clear that what we needed to do was to all meet together. And so it was about a year ago at this time that we decided that we were going to hold off on the nuts and bolts planning and that we were going to look for funding to bring the board together so that we could actually effect our plan. We knew that that was going to take time. We also knew that with the work that our philanthropy R&D lab had been doing prior, that we never wanted to just look for money. We wanted to look for real partners, as we've been talking so much about what does real partnership mean. The result of all of that has been that a strategic priority this year has been finding funding partners. You've heard us talk about our 3 strategic priorities. One of them has been finding those funding partners. But all of the conversation that we had around that led to all of these conversations that we've been having, that we are intending to have in the fall, sleuthing conversations to explore and find partners that make sense in a real partnership way. So that was a year ago. In order for us to find those partners and to engage those conversations, we needed visibility. We needed to enhance our credibility, public credibility. We knew we had internal credibility, but that visibility piece. So the second strategic priority came out again of that conversation where we said we need to find funding partners who want to work with us, who want to play with us and explore with us and plan with us. So both of those strategic initiatives came out of that conversation just a year ago right now. And all the work that's been done towards those that you saw in the written report. Okay, so that's about a year ago. 8 months ago was when this board decided that all of our meetings would be live online and engage participation. We're barely getting started with that. All of our meetings, I can't even count how many meetings have been live and online. We feel like we live in a broadcast studio, but the emphasis that the board had, the concern that people would either not watch or that they would watch and not participate, people are participating. And it has been the things that the benefits that have come out of our being live online. It's too many to mention in this one report. You guys have acknowledged so many of them. The deep engagement with people who are watching, because we're not just sort of letting it be a tweet stream. We're actually engaging them in the conversation and mentioning them and talking to them while we're in our meetings. Obviously, the visibility that we have gotten, including the Awesome Award that we got from the Awesome Without Borders Foundation, the addition of all of this wisdom that we never would have gotten, understanding what resonates with people because they're sharing it and watching what they're retweeting. 8 months ago, we weren't doing any of this, and now it's just the way we be. That, again, came out of what the board worked on this year. So that was a year ago and 8 months ago. 4 months ago, the board prioritized that when we are doing education programs, which is how we intend to stabilize what we're currently working on, when we're doing education programs, that we will focus at the entry level to nurture people along. And our flash classes have grown out of that. And again, that was just 4 months ago, immediately became one of our strategic priorities. 3 months ago is when our board talked about what our values look like in action. And ever since then, we have been inserting what our values look like in action into absolutely everything we're doing. So over the course of a year, we have every single thing that this board has been doing, and everything that we have discussed has had a profound impact on both the day-to-day work that we're doing and on the mission, because just by being in this way, we're accomplishing the mission. So what is the board tackling now? By the end of this year, we will, as a young board, have completely reviewed and thought about mindfully all of the legal issues that most boards just look at as boilerplate and let the attorneys deal with or let a committee deal with. We're going to look at each and every one of those by the end of the year. The bylaws, the budget process, our minutes, everything that has to do with the annual meeting, all of those things we will mindfully approach from the power, from the perspective of what they bring in terms of their power to raise up what's possible. So I just wanted to thank you guys for the most meaningful conversations. And it's the reason we all look forward to these board meetings. But how often do boards say, every single meeting we have had has had a direct impact on the work of the organization and has had a direct impact on our mission. And that is just pretty cool. So I just wanted to thank you guys for that. Number 2 on the hit parade is our talking about our community conversations tour throughout Southern Ontario. It was really pretty remarkable. 4 of our fellows in Southern Ontario brought us up there, used airline miles, put us up in their homes so that we could have, I believe we had 5 community conversations, 7 total convenings in 4 communities in 4 days. It was pretty remarkable, but it was really this amazing stone soup where everyone put what they had into the pot to make this event possible. One of the things that came out of the debrief that we had just today was the thought that these events were not goals in and of themselves. They were preconditions to what's next. And that's a pretty cool thing to come out of that. Um, we had several other meetings as well while we were there. We met with the CEO of the Toronto Community Foundation, who will soon be joining me on my podcast. We got to tour the Center for Social Innovation. We got to meet with Tanya Sermon, who has been one of my guests on the podcast. The community conversations alone brought business people, government people, obviously traditional community benefit people, social entrepreneurs, just regular old people. We had a chef at one of our meetings. It was really remarkable to watch people come together and really aim for what's possible in as short a conversation as an hour and a half, as long a conversation as 4 hours, and coming to those same conclusions over and over again of what is possible, of what the future is that we want, and seeing that there is a practical path towards that. So, like Gail W., who was the one who wrote the comment to the blog post, seeing that there is a path that's possible, and that was it clearly resonated in the debrief that we did today. People talking about just the fact that it's possible. Some of what you're seeing on the screen here is word clouds that Dimitri made out of the reflections people had. And if you haven't read that blog post, it's at the Walking the Talk blog. The blog post about the tour also has a link to all of the reflections that people shared at the end of each of those community conversations. And the word clouds that you're seeing are the result of those, but I can't recommend enough taking a look at that blog post and reading through the pages and pages of what stood out for folks at the end of the sessions. Huge energy, and it really helped inform pretty much everything that we're doing. It's been, as you guys know, 2.5 years since Dimitri and I were out there. We have been internal here, building the infrastructure for creating the future, being out and seeing the effect that 2.5 years of work has had, people who are resonating with the messaging that we've been able to hone because of the work that we've done over the past 6 months with Zach and with Dave. It was just pretty remarkable in many, many ways, and I'm sure that will come up during our conversations for the next several months at our board meetings. One thing that is going to be happening towards hopefully the effect of another tour like this is that Dimitri and I will be in Western Pennsylvania at the end of this month, the end of August, meeting with some folks there that want to talk about real nuts and bolts about how can we create community infrastructure, that sort of that last section of the Pollyanna Principles, where we talk about how can we create community infrastructure for creating the future we want for our communities. So that's going to be pretty remarkable. I will share more about that during our September meeting because I don't know more about it now, except that we're going to have a conversation. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I wanted to share with you, except the debrief that we had today about the tour. Many people were watching, which was really exciting. We invited everybody that we encountered on the tour that we had a way of getting hold of to be part of the debrief. And so many of the people that were there were not just our 4 fellows, actually 3, Anne was on vacation, but also people who were just in various of those conversations. And when I say conversations, at Mars we had about 75 people. In London we had about 100 people. The smallest group we had, I think, was about 20 people, and that was by invitation only. At Mars, they sold out and had a waiting list. Same thing happened in London. They were turning people away because they had maxed out the capacity on the room. So these are pretty exciting things to have happened. And it was really exciting that some of those people joined in the debrief conversation today. I want to share with you just one of the tweets that came out of that debrief. And this was from Brent Schmidt, who was, I believe, in the Waterloo session that we did. And he tweeted, "Can't you just feel the expansive power of letting the question, what's possible, sink into your being?" So that's the effect that the tour was having and that our being public with the debrief was having. So wanted to bring you guys up to speed on that because it's really going to be informing a lot of it informed a lot of our thinking and will be informing a lot of what we're doing. The next item is, I know you guys always want to know what am I working on my sabbatical. I wish I could tell you that I'm writing my next book, but that is not destined for this year, not with the pace that we have been going at. Um, we began this year by diving in on those three strategic initiatives that came out of our board discussions, finding funding partners so that we can plan and move forward, raising visibility and awareness of the work that we're doing so that we could find those partners, stabilizing and enhancing the current work that we're doing. And we dove in at the beginning of the year to figure out what do we need to do that. You'll recall that we did our asset-based resource development plan. We are implementing that plan. All of the work that we're doing, we just dove in, said we'll do it and we'll figure out what we need in order to do it as we go. Well, after about 6-7 months of doing it, that's what became clear, is what infrastructure do we need to not just work on those three strategic initiatives, but to really operate at peak performance. And so that's what we are focusing on during my sabbatical, and I should sort of call it our sabbatical, because we are really focusing on putting into place some really solid infrastructural pieces that we've seen we've needed for each of the strategic initiatives. Let me go through them one by one. First, in the area of stabilizing and enhancing our current work before we scale up, before we ramp up, before we find partners, just to maintain, to stabilize, and to enhance. One of the things that became very clear that we need is a good, solid webinar platform so that we can do the flash classes, we can do some webinars in-house that make sense to do. And so one of the things that Dimitri's going to be working on during this next couple of months is infrastructure for the webinar platform. We also are going to finally be posting some positions at Idealist, looking for interns and volunteers, participants in the work that we're doing. Have several positions, including the board documentarian positions that Jessica and Drew were handling so wonderfully, that are now vacant. And so going to be posting some things at Idealist, and again using the Creating the Future twist, which isn't the we need to use volunteers, but that we really want people to participate in the work that we're doing. The other infrastructure piece that became really clear in terms of our stabilizing the work we're currently doing and our resource development work was that our office is an asset that was just hiding in plain sight. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later, but a huge piece of what we're doing is looking at infrastructure-wise, is gutting the office. There's a good chance that the next time you see this video, none of what's behind me will be behind me, and I don't even know where I will be. I'll be in that other room someplace, but it's hard to say even on what wall. So, so that's a big, huge piece of what we're doing while we have the downtime. You know, August is such a slow month that while we have the downtime, it's the perfect time for us to move stuff out. So that's the infrastructure piece on that strategic initiative. The infrastructure that's needed for our finding funding partners and our having the sleuthing conversations that we're having. The infrastructure there is really along the lines of the visibility and especially the messaging piece. And I'll talk a little bit more about that, because visibility is is one of our strategic initiatives, but we're really seeing that as infrastructure towards being able to find funding partners. So let me talk about the visibility initiative, because that's the one where we are also spending a lot of time in terms of infrastructure. For what do we need in order to have the visibility? We need some infrastructure. Having one of the positions that we're going to be looking for at Idealist is support for our online meetings. One of the biggest pieces of our visibility is our online meetings, and as you guys can imagine, there is a ton of work that goes into support of that. Again, we wouldn't have known unless we dived in, and so we're going to be looking for infrastructure to support those online meetings. The messaging, everybody's been asking, you know, whatever happened to all of the messaging work we were doing? Well, we've been actually practicing the messaging. And so a lot of that has to do with changes that we make at the website. We're very, very close on thinking about what a logo might be, because now that we have been working with the messaging, and when I say working with it, I mean using it. So sharing it as the way we talk about our work when we were touring throughout Ontario, seeing what resonated with people, actually putting it into practice. There's nothing like a 300-person focus group to let you know if what you're saying is actually resonating with people. And so I'm going to be doing a lot of blogging on that during this sabbatical, so that it brings everybody up to speed on where we have come, what we're thinking about. We've had several meetings that haven't had the chance even to blog about yet. And so all of those infrastructure pieces around the messaging, what the website looks like, what the website says, the logo, all of those things are part of the infrastructure that we're going to be focusing on in the next couple of months as we're sabbaticaling. The last thing became very clear, especially through the tour, but it also has been becoming clear as more and more people are participating in our online communities at Facebook, on Twitter. More and more people are plugging in via our meetings. And that is very specifically that people need a way to plug in, and especially need a way to plug in their own community. That came out of our Ontario tour, that the result of our, sort of being the grandparent, whipping up the kids and then leaving, is that people are excited and want to engage further in their own community. What has come out of that is this entire discussion that we've been sort of dancing around the edges of what does place-based work look like when we're creating infrastructure for change. I've started blogging about that a little bit. That is a conversation that we're pretty confident is going to come out when we eventually do our planning. That's probably going to be a big piece of what we talk about, is having conversations on the ground in communities, and joining conversations that are already existing in communities. For right now, though, a part of the infrastructure is just starting that conversation, blogging about it, bringing people to the blog posts, and starting having that conversation and seeing what evolves. But a second piece of that is the infrastructure of this office as a place where we can experiment with what does that infrastructure look like, specifically convening infrastructure. So if this office becomes a community space specifically for bringing groups together who want to play with what does it take to work together, that's what this office renovation is going to be about. So I guess we're diving right into the fourth area of our conversation in this report, which is what's going on with the office. You will have noted that there is at the What's New blog, there is a blog post and a video, which I'll link you guys to in the board packet. The video really explains what we're doing around the office just for our office makeover party. On the 17th and 18th, we are having an office makeover party. If any of you guys are in town, Carl, I think you should fly in from London to be here for our office makeover party. What we're asking for is, this is again that whole stone soup model, that whole, if everybody pitches in and adds a carrot and an onion and some potatoes, then we have got a really, really rich broth, and everybody's just pitching in what they have. So if you can be here, we would love to have you be here as part of it. We're going to be painting and taping and moving things out and moving things back in. But we're also asking people to pitch in for supplies, for paint, for an electrician that needs to do some wiring, for some new desks that'll fit into our significantly smaller office. And so any of you board members that want to pitch in, the budget is at that blog post at the What's New blog. But we're just asking, and people have been pitching in. It's been great. I got a note from somebody the other day that said, I just bought you some paint. So people are diving in on that. The point is not to redo the office. Obviously, we could keep living like this. The point is that we have a program yet to be developed, but a program for beginning to model and demonstrate what it might look like to have community infrastructure for convening, for bringing people together. Because one of the things that has become clear to us over time, I mean, hell, I wrote about it in the Pollyanna Principles 5 years ago, but it became so clear when we were in Ontario that the what's next for people is that there is no entity in communities that holds itself accountable for just bringing people together to have conversation. And especially not within a framework of what's possible, not within a framework of what is the future we can create together. And so that's what we want to explore. And we're not sure, like I said, what that program will be yet in Tucson. We will probably, knowing us, learn it by diving in, trying it and see what happens, and then put some more thought into it and more thought into it. But diving in using the framework and see what happens at every point along the continuum for folks who just want to come together about one little thing, folks that want to change the entire community. But that's why it became clear that we needed the infrastructure for that and that this office could be that. So that's the stuff that's been going on around here, in addition to all the stuff that you see in the written report. So I did want to share all the amazing things that we have done as a board over the past year, all the amazing things that we are jumping into that we will finish by year end. I did want to share everything about our tour, which was truly over the top. Talk about our sabbatical, where we are just building the infrastructure so we can continue to build this plane while we fly it. And we will see you at the board meeting on Monday. Bye-bye. Hi guys, this is the agenda video for our August 2013 meeting. This will be a very, very quick video because we only have one item on the agenda. As we talked about last time, we are going to be focusing on our budget process. What do we want our budget process to make possible and for whom? and what process, what conditions will lead to that, and what process can embody those conditions. So looking very, very forward to a great conversation. The other thing that we will be doing is approving our values in action that we wrote up after our May meeting. And that should take a relatively short amount of time, and we're good to go. But looking forward to a great meeting, seeing what's awesome with all of you guys, and we'll see you on Monday. Bye bye.